Blog Talk Radio.
We welcome the night.
Oasis radio show where we discuss the latest movies and news from the world of horror. Joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host, Ian. Ian, are you there?
I am.
I'm going to have to change that intro because we're not doing any of that anymore. But we're here, and it's been a little bit since our last few shows. And, again, real-world stuff got in the way usually. But we're here. And we're going to be hitting it pretty hard here coming up because we have a pretty good season coming up. We got, of course, the Halloween season and all of our other marathons that we usually do back-to-back. So we'll try to be pretty heavy with shows. But we figured before we get into our next marathon, it would be a good idea to do something a little different, even though it's not really different. But we do this every now and then. But we're going to go to the Boneyard, and it's been a little bit since our last one. I think, wasn't it one ad? I think was our last one. Maybe there's another one. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm pretty certain that was like our last main one. I could, again, not exactly sure, but this one was one that I wanted to do on the show because it was just so... How I come to find these things, of course, as you know, is online on eBay, and how I sleuth my way around to finding these weird, obscure titles to get on the show and review. And this one was no different. And there was a listing there, and it was just, again, just like I didn't know anything about it, of course, with most of these because they're so obscure. But it shouldn't be that obscure either because it was made in 2018, so like 4 or 5 years. It's not. Again, I'm assuming it came out in 2018, but I don't know exactly when it came out on disc. And this, again, it's very an obscure movie because I don't know how many copies of this exist, and that's the reason I always like to get these. It's like so limited because you never know. This is the only one, especially the way it was made. Because I'm assuming this is one of those, it's like Kickstarter or something like that, where you buy it and it was like a limited run, maybe 100, maybe less than that, because I don't know why he would have to go through the trouble of making 100 of those. But what I'm getting at is that the film itself it's a regular standard DVD case with the cover art as you're seeing on the image on this show, and on our Facebook page and everything like that is that's the DVD. But what you don't see, and what I shared with Ian, is that this comes in a special leather-bound packaging that was custom handmade to look like a spell book. So the way it smells like a couch. So they got like couch leather apparel, cut it out and made sort of leather-bound spell book, and you slide the DVD into it, into this big, bulky, square book. It's like an inch thick and, like a couple inches wide. And it's crazy, and it's awesome. I love having it. And but, again, that's what I mean. Like, I don't know how many physical DVDs there are of that. And it has to take some time if if it's limited to 50 or 100, because that would take a while. Only a certain, that's like the upper echelon of like coming, if you pledged towards the film. So again, I don't know where, I looked and there's nothing else I can find. There's not even hardly any reviews of the film. So this is going to be like the only one for a while until somehow this gets a more widespread release. And that's a shame, because this film is actually not that bad. This is actually a pretty fun movie. And we'll get into the synopsis and everything like we usually do with these Boneyards. But I'm just going to say, for a film, for our Boneyard stuff, I think this is probably one of the top 3 that we reviewed. I mean, if we're going way back, again, I'm just going on like what me and Ian has reviewed together, not just the ones that I covered, like Domain of the Damned and High School Ghost Hustlers, stuff like that. I'm talking about the ones me and Ian has both seen. So this is definitely up there. I think this goes up there with like The Human Virus as one of the more funner ones and just like more entertaining films that we reviewed. Again, it's a shame because you have this. It's like, again, no physical copies, but it is available online. Like, it's there. Like, people can go view it. It's just hidden. And you wouldn't know that. And it's a shame because I think people should, because this kind of shows you like what indie film can be. Like, they do a lot with this film, and like it's just forgotten in a sense, because he really put in a lot of work for this film, and it just like it's there, but no one knows about it. And hopefully with this review and with our description and everything, people can go and check it out. But nonetheless, let's get into our review of Witchtown. Like, again, it's directed by Stephen Biggin, who also co-stars in the film. It came out in 2018, and as I said, physical probably less. Who knows? But it's available on. If you look up Film Freeway and just type in Witchtown or Stephen Biggin Witchtown Film Freeway, it'll show up in the search engine on Google, so you can find it there. And don't be forewarned, like a little forewarning, when the film comes up, it'll say it's 155 minutes. It's an hour and 46. The rest are credits. So you don't have to worry. But I do say I suggest checking it out, even though it's kind of what we usually don't do beforehand, but I figured it's best. But anyway, the film, we follow our 2 main characters. One is called the Professor, and the other is Patches. Now, the Professor is a eccentric character because he wants to bring, again, this is shortening most of the film down, he wants to bring the giants of the old world who used to rule the world, in a sense, and who were, again, sort of banished or just perished away, and he wants to bring them back by doing spells and surgery and incantations and all this stuff. So him and Patches have been abducting people and then getting them pregnant, the women, basically turning the men into goons, which were basically like the lowest common denominator of demon, and putting them into human bodies, which makes them sort of dumb, which calls them goons. And they then have the goons impregnate the women to hopefully give birth to a giant. And it's not been working, and they still keep on doing it. That's the professor's main motive, because he wants, again, the world to be sort of better than what it was. There's a lot of political talk, but it rings true to the story of, like, the leaders now are, terrible, and what better way than to bring the ones that used to rule the world back into a new state, in a sense. And Patches is like, he's along with it. He wants to help the professor, but he wants to go about it a different way, and he wants to find the spell to travel back through this portal, because the portal only opens up every 6,000 years. And so he wants to find the spell book and summon the giants that way, so he can help the professor, even though the professor has different ways of going about ending up with sort of the same result, even though it's technically not exactly what kind of goes down. Like, it kind of doesn't work that way. But we'll get into that a little bit later. So that's technically the gist of the movie. There's also some minor characters that show up, but it's basically the professor and Patches each having their own plan and each having their own separate story to achieving one goal. And overall, like I said, I enjoyed it because, again, as I mentioned earlier, with these Boneyard films, there's been some dogs. I mean, there's been some times we sat here and we had to go through films and it's just like, oh, my goodness, what is going on with this? Why is it this way? Why is it that way? This, like I said, I had fun with it, and I enjoyed what they were doing because, honestly, even without knowing that the film was, I was still going under the circumstance that it was an hour, 2-hour movie, and I was like really drawn into the story. And it's shot in the film is in black and white, and usually when shot in black and white, that's to show, to hide a lot of effects or blemishes that the film would show. And honestly, I think it worked. And another thing I think that worked is usually I'm not a fan of the grindhouse filter over top of film, but I felt that it worked in this case because it actually made more sense with the whole story being presented. So yeah, I enjoyed the look of it. I enjoyed the story, the concept, because like I was assuming it's going to be about like witches and everything, but then they kind of take you for a turn and just like, no, it's about spells and conjuring demons and the giants of the old world coming back. So there's hardly, again, there's no witches in a film called Witchtown. But I thought that was fine. I didn't have no issues with that because the story was good, and I liked the lore that they were building up with like the time traveling and like the person that used to, had the spell book, and then you had the person that overlooked the spell book. And then, like, the goons coming back and having sex with the women to produce a giant, and, the fetuses and the giants. And then, like, what happens with the baby we'll get into. And so it was just like a fun little ride. And, like, there was a lot of heart in there. And, like, even if you look at it and you can see, like, all the blemishes, but, like, the suspension of disbelief, like when Patches is in the old town and he's in the cabin, and like you can see the garage door where it's supposed to be this old medieval sort of cabin. Like you can look past it and just like, yeah, I'm all right with suspending disbelief and thinking he's in I wouldn't say medieval times, but some century with a werewolf demon watching over a spell book and artifacts and everything. And so you can look past it, and it's fun. It's just a fun little entertaining watch, and like as I said, it's a shame that no one technically knows about it because I think, as I mentioned, like it has an audience, and I think it needs to find that audience. Like it's just like it came and went. But Ian, I'll get your thoughts, and then we'll go back and forth.
Yeah, no, this movie was definitely creative in a lot of ways. I think just having the idea was there. They knew what they wanted to do, and I felt like they actually like accomplished that goal. Some of the humor kind of, to me, it wasn't my type of humor, which is, I don't know, I didn't really, think some of it kind of was just a little cringy to me, but that's just me. But I think I agree with everything you said. Like, they put a lot of heart into this. This was a fun passion project that they put a lot, and we've reviewed, people who just make movies for the sake of just putting something out without any real thought behind it. And it was nice to see that they actually like really wanted to do this and knew what they wanted to do. I thought that how the goons were, imbeciles, and they were just like, and all the, slapstick humor. I thought it did work for the movie, even if it wasn't, 100% my type of humor. But that's just, like I said, personal preference of. But the movie really did fit together. The whole, breaking off and doing your own little thing, but for the same purpose. I thought that was a neat little, turn, going back in time, and I did enjoy the ending scene with the judge. I thought that was kind of, but like you said, these movies, like these Boneyard movies, some of them just need to stay buried.
Yeah.
And this one, I don't understand. Like, I would have thought that this movie wouldn't be as hard to find. Because, I went looking to see if it was on something I could watch on my television. Nothing. And
that's the thing. Like, it's not available. It's only on that, again, on Film Freeway for free, and then the DVDs. And again, I don't know how many DVDs exist, but yet you have stuff that's like distributed by like ITN, and it's some of the worst shit out there. And like, they're even like, they're actually 2 hours, and they don't have no story. It's just people wandering around, and there's like long, extension, scenes of nothing, and yet it's like widely distributed, and you can find it at the Dollar Tree, you can find it at Walmart, and this is like gone in a sense. I can't
tell you how many times I've seen Louisa's films. Yeah,
especially Louisa's films. But like I'm saying, like there's some films out there that's like way too long. Like one I'm talking about, like I watched just recently too, where it's like it's awful. All right, and it's just like, why? And like it just, there's like, and that's the kind of filmmaking I don't like, where it's just like someone's just pointing and shooting. There's no reason, going through the woods, point and shoot, look dumbfounded, and making something. The story, cut it down to 90 minutes. All the extended stuff doesn't need to be in there. I don't need to see fucking shots of deer or forest over and over again. Like it doesn't add anything crucial to the story. With this one, I felt like everything was needed, and it's still, again, it was only an hour and 46, which I thought was 155, but still, I was still enthralled by the story, and it's a shame.
Oh, yeah.
Again, like I said, like I was enthralled by the story, and like everything worked in the film's favor. There's some minor instances here, like some goofs with like the mustache on the professor, but you kind of make a gag at that later on, even though it still kind of doesn't make sense early on. But it's fun. It's a fun little movie. And then when it gets into the whole professor side plot is like fucking amazing. Once he gets in there with the demon baby, Because, again, everything needs a demon baby. Always. You know, like Necro Files had a demon baby, zombie baby fight scene. Everything needs that. So, because it's always fun, and it's always stupid, but I thought they had fun with that in this one. And, you know, you have, just them acting stupid in the sense, because it is sort of over the top in a sense, where it's just like, it's I wouldn't say it's like clumsy, but it's just like that's the way that they're kind of going at it. It's like, you know, it's sort of like that spoof style, but it's actually not. But like they're keeping it like as straightforward as they can, but still poking fun in the sort of the spoof territory, sort of like a Mutanus or Island of the Damned or something like that from like Dire Wit or something like that, Dire Wit films. It isn't like, it's just like it's a good idea, and they actually went through with it. And there's some good gore. Well, I wouldn't say gore, but it's like there's some blood. It's all done. It's sort of like, again, it's black and white, but you get the sense where it's just like, yeah, this looks good for what they're trying, because they're trying to hide everything, but it works in its favor. And again, that whole suspension of disbelief works in its favor if you can look past. Again, it's an indie film, but we've watched a lot of that, so we can look past it. And this one it's just a fun little movie, and it has a good story, and it has a lot of heart to it and a lot of charm, and they really did put a lot of effort into it. Like I said, it's not a point-and-shoot film. They had a story. They went with it. They managed to do the best they could, and it still turned out pretty damn good. Some minor things here and there, but it's like it was so, again, like you're invested in this world that they're building. Like you want to see like the giants and everything, and you don't really get that in a sense, but they kind of play into it later on in the film. It's kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, it's a really enjoyable watch.
Yeah, and most of these movies like that, you can just tell like that this was days, not hours, but like days of just writing and trying to make sure that, it actually fit and made sense before they were shooting. Because I'm pretty sure most of the movies, some of these movies we watch, they're just like, what are we doing today? I don't fucking know. Let's just shoot. I throw darts at a dartboard and see what sticks.
Yeah, today we're just
like
going to
we just make it up
star,
and
she's
along.
going to rub up against a branch. Today's the branch sex scene. All right, there you go. That's done. All right, see you 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, it's just, and you see, like, and you can tell, like, when they don't have, like, the people on set that day, they make it work. You can tell, like, from the lack of goons and everything that there's, they just try to make do with what they had.
And the budget, too. Like, I'm pretty sure some of the goons, like the later goons and the cloaks, that was just garbage bags. I'm positive that was just
pretty sure
garbage bags.
That's what it was. Really nice garbage bags, though.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, dang. I was like, they bought the like heavy like yard bags. Yeah. I was like, hey, they made it look good, so I was like, the costume design was pretty good. Yeah, the prosthetics on some of the goons, but it's an indie movie that we've seen people
honestly,
who literally bought.
Look at it this way. This was a passion project, I'm assuming, and it shows. And then we have something like Nazi Zombie Carnage, which was also a passion project, but also too fucking long. And it's the same thing over and over. So there's different types of passion projects. One that's, I don't know why, and then this one where it's like, that was fun, and they're both sort of political in a sense.
Definitely.
And just like they're both opposite ends of the spectrum, where like there's just like one manages. Of course, Nazi Zombie Carnage was one man show. This one probably more people, but still, nonetheless, it shows how they're opposite ends of the spectrum. and how you
exactly.
can turn, it's just they're both okay ideas, but it's when you know what you're doing and not just having people jump in the foxhole over and over. Like this one has, a time traveling aspect, demons, fucking everything in there, like demon babies. It was all over the place, and still it had a political agenda. And it's just it was fun and had a good, good pace.
I felt
That's the thing. It had a good pacing too. It wasn't 3 hours, and felt 3 hours.
And the
this
political
was
aspect,
you were already done with the film.
Wasn't in your face either.
Yeah. And that's one thing too. It's I wonder how much time is left. And wow, I'm already an hour and 12 minutes. This is almost over. Damn, this is going by fast.
Oh yeah. And there's what's wrong with it? The things that can be picked apart is just mostly just nitpicking. And, when it comes to films that have low budgets, you gotta go overlook it. What was that movie that we watched? It was a werewolf, and it was, you could tell that they bought the mask from Spirit Halloween. You make do with what you got.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into this, and, the costume designs I thought were amazing. Yeah, like I said, there's some, you can tell that they might not have been, the top quality, but they made it work. And they really did try. And that is the thing. Let's talk, bringing up Louisa, let's talk about her random changing of the leprechaun and the boys and all that crap, and how just cheap everything looked.
Mm-hmm.
And not even trying to hide or trying to make
scenes
work.
missing that should be there, stuff like that, where she's like, what, fuck it, we don't need that.
And we don't need audio in the scene.
No.
It's they didn't even, and this movie, they really put a lot of themselves into it. This was not a rush job just to push it out to work on the next thing. This was I'm going to, carry this baby to term and, hope it comes out with a good personality. And I think they accomplished that. I think this movie does work for that.
Especially when you're comparing it to stuff like Woodstock Holiday and, like I mentioned earlier, that one ad where it's just point and shoot and just awful stuff, just the worst things that you nitpick apart and it just falls apart excessively. This is it works for the story. It's just not point and shoot. The characters aren't shit. The storylines aren't shit. You don't pick, it's not falling apart as soon as you start the film. This one, it starts, you're invested, and then it keeps going that way with more interesting things brought into the mix, and then it just keeps going and expanding this world and the time traveling aspect and giants and the demon baby and Professor and Patches going off their separate paths, and then the werewolf guarding the book, and then the old wise man that made the book, the sword, and all this stuff, and then what happens at the end with the judge, and just it keeps expanding and everything that goes on, and then not even mention the law, Mr. Law, who comes in to play later on, and everything else that happens. It's just it keeps expanding and just keeps the pace going by introducing something new into the mix. And then you have Patches and Professor square off, and he's able to, the Professor's able to just to time travel automatically. He's where'd that come from? It's just all right, he's, because it's also very talkative too. It's a lot of the talking and the dialogue is, first person in a sense, where it's just them, narrating over the film what's happening, and that works too because it's just them talking. I need to go over here. I need to get this. So it's all this stuff, it just works. I mean, it is very, like I said, it's very talk heavy. There's a lot of stuff being spit at you, and but it's just like you got to take it in, and you're like, okay, because like when Professor goes off in his tangents about political stuff, like it's very heavy, but it also makes more reasoning for why he's doing everything.
Yeah. Well, and going on off of that, like when they did add stuff new to it, it didn't break their own lore. It wasn't, beyond their own reach. And I think, like when it comes to some of the movies we've watched, they do that. They break their own lore just for the sake of a cool scene they had an idea for, and they didn't really care if it fit or not. And they didn't. It's like, well, if they could have done that the whole time, why haven't they been doing that? Like, kind of thing. Like, if it just doesn't make sense. And like, it's just, sorry, I was thinking of the scene of in Leprechaun where Louisa's, where it was just that stupid coin in the water.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
the reason, like, oh, here's your coin back. I don't care. You're dead. Like, just because. That's what we're getting at here. Like, it's just, she doesn't have anything to do with it. She's a fucking housekeeper. But you know what? You touched it. You're dead. You have nothing to do with it.
And that didn't really make sense for the, but I can go on and on about that movie too.
Oh,
but stuff like that. This movie really stuck to its own lore, and you could tell when they were wanting to add things how it would affect the story. Like they were actually trying to make sure that it fit. Like nothing felt like completely out of place. Like the time travel, that came out of the left field, but they had already introduced the idea to it. Maybe the wizard hat granted him some power that allowed him to it's in the realm of their own possibilities. Like, time travel exists. Maybe he knows he doesn't have to go through everything and just, boom, can do it.
Or he knows the spells by heart, because he is the professor. I mean, they brought that up too. Like, Patches, joined into that class to learn more about the spells and everything. So he needed the spell, the scroll, while the professor didn't, because he already knew about it. So they introduce all these things. And again, like I said, it's very talk-heavy, so you have to pay attention to get, all the, minute details to where it actually makes sense to the story. Like, it doesn't, it's not like Ian said, it's not out of the realm of things. It works for the story that gets brought up. And, again, how everything just, works together in unison with each character's subplot and how it all converges together at the end. And then, how it all just, you know what? Kind of a joke. In a sense, it's not like a joke as in, the joke's on the viewer. No, it's just like a joke on the characters where it's just, all that for, what happens.
Exactly. And but it's also a good, and even that is an allegory for, trying, and, I'm not going to force feed anybody to kind of get the movie. You should get your own interpretations of it. I don't want most people to, if they do manage to watch this movie, they, not to go in with a preconceived, notion of what is happening. But, the political commentary really isn't spoon-fed because they don't just bring up one politician. While, yes, I'm pretty sure the videos you see in the beginning are edited. I don't know how much, but but you even see him show, the left wing, right wing, fascism, Hitler, everybody talking about this thing, and they kind of explain it But yeah, at the same time, they're not just like shoving it in your face and down your throat about what their true goals are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you can go in this, you know, left wing, right wing, independent, and come up with your own interpretation of what they mean. And you're not going to feel like one side is being pushed over the other. And, you know...
And plus, it's just an interesting way to bring forth demons, because you don't really see it that often for, like, political means either, the way that the film kind of introduces it. So it's also interesting because it's sort of a new take on it. You know, even it is demons being brought back to the world, but it is an interesting take. And again, this film is just like, it's not available. Like, you have to go to, again, I made sure to look up the website, filmfreeway.com, Witchtown in all caps. So filmfreeway.com/Witchtown in all caps.
Some movies,
and you'll be able to find it.
Get the shit end of the stick.
Yeah, and again, like I said, it's a sad state of affairs where this, you have to go through various means to find it, whereas most other stuff that's like just point and shoot with no reason whatsoever, like, hey, let's make a movie, no reason, you know, no point, let's just do this, and it gets distributed in Walmart and everywhere else. But this is just like forgotten, and that's the kind of the main reason we did these shows. You know, they brought up the Boneyard because of the human virus. That was the very first one, and that, look, I mean, going back on that, look now, like that film's available on Tubi, and that, you know, the director went on to do another, you know, his Tales from Appalachia, and like that film was lost, and then we discussed it, and he was so enthralled by our review, and it just like put us, you know, he got the film back out there for people, and you know, I'm happy to see, you know, like, again, that doesn't matter, you know, we're just two random people talking about movies. But it's just cool to see that sometimes. Like, sometimes these films that we talked about years ago manage to get back out there. And hopefully that's the case with this one, because I do think there's an audience there, and I want people to kind of check it out, because it's like one of the more funner, low-budget offerings I've had the, you know, we've reviewed on the show. I mean, I'm looking like, again, one ad, Woodstock Holiday, and radioactive flesh-eating foliage. It's way better than half of those. You know, it's definitely better than all those. And it's just like one of those, you know, fun little, you know, films. Like, it like I said, top 5 maybe. I mean, but still, I do suggest people try to find this. Again, it's readily available if you follow that link we provided. And again, no idea about a DVD besides maybe less than 100 maybe. And again, I've only seen the one, and I own it. So sometimes you just gotta. I mean, that's the thing. That's why I love doing these shows. Like, sometimes you find the hidden fun little movie. But yeah, it's not perfect. It has imperfections here and there, but there's a lot of charm and like dedication to it. And it's like, it's definitely more charmful and more than, say, again, Nazi Zombie Carnage, which is 3 hours, and it's just and it just kept going and going and going. This one, like, I kind of wanted it to keep going because I wanted to see the Giants come back. But again, it kind of plays in on itself with that part. But like what they introduce, and then like again fighting the demon baby that's sort of coming into becoming a giant, and everything that goes on in the kitchen, and like again, it's a very cheap. You know, it's shot in the dude's kitchen and the dude's like basement and in his garage. You know, it's just a cheap little thing, but they put a lot of effort and heart into it, and it kind of shows where like you're invested, and you're not worried about where it's shot at. You kind of accept that, oh, there's a garage door lift right there, but you know what? I can take that away and see it for what it is, as a fucking 16th century like cabin, you know?
Right. I mean, like, and that's the problem I think a lot of people would have, is most people, you know, a lot of film watchers are such pretentious assholes. They just pick apart the tiniest little thing. It's like, it doesn't matter if it's that. Just see for it as the story is trying to portray it, and then you're like, oh, okay. You know, this makes sense. This is fine. Like, who cares if it's cheaply shot, as long as the story they're putting out is worth it. You know, and I think this story had a lot of heart to it, and, you know, and hopefully, you know, maybe with the new Troma now, you know, I downloaded it and I signed up for it, and I'm going through it, and I'm just like, dang, there's a lot of stuff on here. And, you know, maybe this movie would belong there and actually get promoted, and something comes of it. Like, you know, there's so many streaming services out there now that it's a travesty that, you know, you have to go through hoops just to find it.
Yeah, that's a sad way of how everything is becoming now, because, again, I've always been a proprietor of collecting and, you know, VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, everything like that. And, again, I'm in a different realm because I'm going after films such as this than, like, the more mainstream stuff coming out. Because, again, I want to – these films, you know, might be lost eventually because, you know, streaming might go down, something might happen. And then, like, all these films
exactly
that will never – again, even the ones that, you know, again, I'm talking about, like, again, like one ad. I mean, it's on YouTube, but something might happen to YouTube. You never know. But I have it, even though I'll probably never watch it again. But it's like all these films, you know, like radioactive flesh-eating foliage. I have it. You know, not sure why. I have it. It's just like all these films are going to be lost one day. And, like, even all these zombie films we've discussed and reviewed and I collect, and it's just like you never know what might happen, but at least I have a copy of it, you know. Just like to save it, because, like, you know, you have Vinegar Syndrome. Like, they're bringing all these obscure titles, and I've owned them on VHS for years now, and people are finally getting to a chance to see them. And, like, cool, but I'm already past that because I've already seen them. I've already had them since I was high school, so woohoo. But, like, I'm glad that they're saving them and having, you know, an audience find them again. But I'm going the deep dive, trying to find these ones that are just, like, released in 2005 and forgotten about, you know.
I just want to see, like, in 1,000 years, you know, someone uncovers your movie collection and just watches through it, all of them. It's just
and they're in for a trip.
I feel sorry for whoever has to watch some of the stuff that you own, because I've seen a few of them, and
have fun. Fungicide. Here we go. Oh my goodness. Killer mushrooms. There we go. And what else we got? We got Serial Rabbit, so we need all that. There's so many we've discussed and I've watched, and it's crazy. But nonetheless, I'm happy to have them. You know, just some of these films that you'll never see ever again. Like, there's one that we still haven't discussed yet, and I need to know what it's about. And I don't want to. You know what it is? It's a color. It's a color, man. And we need to find out what that is about because that is just so out there. And I remember when I found that, like, it was like $4. Like, what the hell is this? But nonetheless, I digress. It's for a future Boneyard review, and I'm sure we'll have to dissect that one apart. But nonetheless, I do suggest checking out Witchtown. And we said it's a shame that you have to go to a website that's not like a more known streaming site. But again, filmfreeway.com/Witchtown in all caps, and you'll be able to find it and watch it. So I suggest giving it a shot. I mean, who knows when it might be available on a different streaming platform, but nonetheless, Ian, I'm going to call that a show. I think we discussed about this enough, and we will be back with some marathons coming up. We got Halloween right around the corner. We got Christmas right around the corner, so that's those shows, and we got one coming up next. We'll probably start next week, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out a title. But nonetheless, that's going to do it for tonight. So we thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time on Horror Night Oasis.
Good night.